Hello, everybody. This session is titled Platforms for Development and Representation. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm just going to start with a visual description of myself. I am male. I wear glasses. I have short hair. I'm wearing a blue jacket, dark blue pants, and I have a little panda pin to the left pocket. And today with me, I have colleagues from Indonesia. Mr. Nano Warsono. He is a visual artist, founding board members of Jogja Disability Art. And next to him, we have Dr. Chia, who is the Deputy Director of Audience Development at the National Gallery, Singapore. And to the far right, we have Ms. Angela Tan, Executive Director, Attendees, Singapore. Before I start, I would like to remind everybody that at the back of your card, you can post questions as we speak. So in today's session, I thought I would want to start by reading you a poem, and it's called A Citizen. Because I think in context, as we talk about representation and disability, I would like us to come back to the space and maybe have a think about what does it mean to be a citizen. I wanted to be seen, but who would see me? I couldn't think of the name for anything but a flower. The government makes coin that size and shape so your hands can feel safe holding them. The pictures stamp remind us where we are, or how the landscape we live in connects itself through common value to a different place. On this one, a spy-maker sails past a bridge. On that, a diamond shines like a child still top over a bird, as if the diamond made the natural world. Bird, forest, state flower, sheaf of healthy corn, shining water, out of proportion in relation to itself. I love this. My own state has a bear, so small and out of proportion to me that my lifeline can cross behind it. At last, I do not fear that, but feel proud the animal can sit in my palm so silently until I span it. And if I lose it, then it becomes even more quiet. Most still have an ego, so it is as if 30 eagles will pass over from one hand to another when the other charged with arranging things for his Savior's dinner, arrange his Savior's death. Heavier the work of heat in solitude, a walk uphill does not feel manageable. Who will see me? This is a poem titled A Citizen by Katie Peterson. On that note, I would like to pass the mic to Nano for his presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nano Warsono, and small description about me. I am a Japanese Indonesian. I am 168 centimeter, have a black short hair, wearing a glasses and batik shirt and black pants. I'm very happy to be here today at the Arts and Disability Forum. It is an honor to join and share my experience based on my art practices and disability art discourse in the Indonesian art scene. Today I will present 3 topics that I have been involved with from 2020 to the present. The first is shaping the form of disability art in Indonesia. The second is creating platform through exclusive art practices. The third, disability art collaboration participatory agency. And I will close my presentation with a reflection. Before diving into the 3 topics I mentioned, let me first provide some background about disability and disability arts in Indonesia. Disabled population in Indonesia is about 23 million people, is about 8% from population. In the historical context, people with disability have played different roles in society. The role of disabled people in Indonesia history are depicted in cultural artifacts such as temple relief and folklore characters. However, the negative stigmatization attached to them continued to this day, with discrimination and ableism being dominant in society. In the field of art, people with disability in Indonesia have long been involved, although not specifically identified as disability art. Many have worked as craftsmen, gamelan musicians, or in literary works. Their active are depicted in the temple relief or in wayang beber as part of folklore, such as the character Bancak, Doyo, and Punakawan in the Sadu Puppet stories. Disability in modern Indonesia have also practices widely in the field of fine arts and performing art by disabled people, though these practices were not initially referred to as disability art. It was only in 2010 when my friend Butong is here also, raise your hand, that he held a visual art exhibition which especially used term disability artists and disability arts. At that time, it was not yet recognized its own discourse. For me, it's very important now to use term disability art to describe our movement both locally and globally. We were introduced to the disability art which originated in Britain in the 1970s and adopted it as the name of our organization, Jogja Disability Arts. In Indonesia, the term was ingrained into the disability art discourse. Since then, we have been working to encourage disability art as part of the art movement in Indonesia, beginning in 2020 along with the wave of COVID-19 pandemic. I became involved in disability art in Indonesia as an artist living in Jogja, working individually and collectively to address social environmental issues through mural arts since 2002. One of my collaborations was Apotek Comic Collective, an art collective focused on public space issue, where I learned a lot about art and equality through murals. In 2018, I met with Butong, who have community name of DIFCOM, and become involved in many disability art projects with him, sometimes as a facilitator, sometimes as collaborator, sometimes as curator, sometimes as concept or developer for disability art event. So from my experience working and collaborating with disabled artists, I have identified several barriers. The first is limited to access the resources for capacity building like knowledge, skill, information, and opportunity. A lack of practical methods that could help overcome limitation in their art practices. And the third is an inaccessible art infrastructure. So I think this is the main barriers that I found in a disabled art movement in Indonesia. This is a big question for us, I think. Why is disability art is so important in the art ecosystem? For me, disability art represents the value of equality, where everyone has the same right to freedom of expression. Art serves as an effective medium to voice this equality. More than that, art becomes a tool to negotiate the position of disabled individuals in a society that still holds strong ableist views and negative stigmas about disability. Art therefore becomes an indirect form of advocacy through cultural practices. However, when we talk about the art ecosystem in Indonesia, it's a very complex situation. Imagining the ideal of art ecosystem while considering the art of infrastructure and stakeholder in Indonesia is not easy, and including disability art in the existing fine arts field, which is still quite exclusive, present challenges. Despite these challenges, we choose to take strategic steps to create activities with educational value, interconnectedness, sustainability, and visibility. With the establishment of Jogja Disability Arts in 2020 as legal entity, we gain access to resources and the ability to affiliate with the National Commission of disability art in Indonesia. We also build a relationship with multiple stakeholders, including academics, private sector, and practitioner. With JDA, we can create our practices and discourses simultaneously. It's mean with JDA, we creating our own opportunities because we don't have much opportunity. We initiate a platform for art event as a stepping stone and also as a implementation of our creating opportunities. The other ways, we also creating roadmap and mainstreaming the discourses of disability art in Indonesia. Additionally, we also establish an art space to accommodate daily activities and serve as a meeting point for art relative in the force. For event organization, we created two regular major events. The annual is Sulu Sumurup Art Festival, and the biennial is Jogja International Disability Arts Biennial. We also inaugurate Equalitarian Art Space, led last year as an inclusive art space initiative in Yogyakarta. The Jogja Disability Art was the first held in the Jogja Disability Arts Biennial was first held in 2021, post-COVID-19 pandemic, and a year after establishment of GDA. This event was organized in collaboration with the RJK Tamsi Gallery, this gallery university in Yogyakarta, where I serve as the gallery director. An interesting fact about Jogja International Disability Art is that might be the only biennial in the world that focus on disability arts. The primary goal of Jogja International Disability Art was to introduce and establish disabled artists from Indonesia to a wider public, not only within Indonesia but also internationally. We also aim to build solidarity and expand the global disability art movement. JIDAP, or Jogja International Disability Art, involved 9 countries and 35 artists. I serve as one of the curator along with Putong. The exhibition also introduced accessibility gallery setup, including display of the artworks and gallery sitter who also acted as accessibility guides. Other activities included a gallery sitter workshop, an international webinar, a curatorial tour, and the workshop led by disabled artists. In 2023, JIDAP took the theme Interchange, showcasing works by 54 artists from 12 countries, including Australia, Brasilia, Croatia, Egypt, Indonesia, New Zealand, Nigeria, Philippines, Singapore, South Korea, the United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom. In addition to the exhibition, the event featured workshop and seminar on disability arts. Jogja International Disability Art 2023 also presented a Samata Award. It's an award that gives to disabled artists and activists both nationally and internationally. The other event that we held as an annual is the Sulu Sumurup Art Festival. We call it SSAS. It's an annual disability art event organized by JDA in collaboration with Yogyakarta Art Center that focuses on presenting works by local and national artists from across Indonesia, both individual artists and community groups. As a festival, SSAS includes visual art exhibition, stage performance, literary workshop, gallery tour, special school, artist talk, and small business bazaar. SSAS serves a platform to discover a new talent among disabled artists from all over Indonesia. And it will be held in 2025 also. But in the 2024, we'll feature 150 artists from 11 provinces in Indonesia. And also me and Butong as a curator in that festival. From my experience in the disability arts field, it is important to build a perspective that places disabled artists as subjects with unique embodied experience, and perception based on their specific disabilities. It's like a quote that don't talk about us without us. It's like this. I think this is very important to subject to places the disabled artist as subject. Participatory roles are needed to bridge the gap and foster shared experiences between disabled and non-disabled individuals, helping to find effective collaborative method for artistic creation, as we have practiced in various international collaboration and also in national collaboration. Maybe this is a very common definition about participatory agency, that actively involving stakeholder in decision making and project implementation foster a sense of ownership and collaboration. I think this is very important, even this is very common, but practically this is the base of my work with disabled artists in Indonesia. This presentation is also about my own reflection, having been involved in different roles in the scene and platform of disability arts in Indonesia. One thing for sure, the disability artists, the disabled community and their support system are the heart of this movement. But I think equality and human dignity speaks universally to all of us. That's what has driven me to continue my involvement, knowing that it's part of my responsibility as an artist who grows in the Indonesian art scene, to create the art environment or ecosystem that could nurture the disabled artists, to have equal opportunities and to flourish at their best in humanity. To end this presentation, this painting was created by me and Eddie, who is a disabled artist who worked with Jogja Disability Arts. The painting carries a message that we might be not know all the answer today of what disability arts would bring us to. There are still so many challenges or limitations. How to attain this inclusive world for us to live in? Is it possible? But also it's not easy. Maybe because our imagination has gotten us there yet today. So although it seems hard, not easy, let's not be discouraged. We must continue to learn, collaborate, and keep exploring new possibilities. That's my presentation, and thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Nano, for the travel into Indonesia, just to give us a sense of how, from a bottom-up kind of effort that our colleagues in Indonesia at Jogja have steered arts and disability. So moving from a bottom-up kind of movement, we are also going to spotlight on culture institution. So I'm going to pass the mic next to Dr. Chia from NGS, National Gallery, Singapore.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Dee. I'm Chinese, female. I have slightly tinted brown hair with a little bit of a blonde streak. And I'm wearing a black blouse, black pants, and black shoes. I realize people don't describe the shoes they wear. Yeah. But anyways, okay, it's an honor to join you today at the Arts and Disability Forum and to share some ideas regarding the following. Maybe we can go back. The title is Positioning Agents for Disabled Artists, Light Tonight, Singapore, and Gallery Children's Biennale. So there are three parts to today's short sharing, 12 minutes. First, positioning theory and its related ideas. Second, festivals as positioning agents for dis+abled artists. What are some of the opportunities? And thirdly, challenges. So allow me to firstly introduce myself so that the audience can better understand the paradigm that frames the work behind this sharing. So since April 2023, I have been the artistic director for Light Tonight Singapore and the Gallery Children's Biennale. Prior to joining the gallery, I was head of education, programs and access at the Singapore Art Museum. And before that, I worked at MOE as an art teacher. And in MOE, one of my stints was a special education provisional specialist. So I worked with SPED schools, serving as an intermediary between our VWOs and MOE. So during that time, I was part of the team that initiated the vocational education and literacy curriculum for SPED schools. So along the way, I obtained an MPhil specializing in technology for students with mild to severe intellectual disabilities. And way before that, in university for printmaking, I had the privilege of being taught by Ching Seok Tin, our Cultural Medallion recipient for visual arts. So that's my background. So let me begin, and I shall do so with a question. How are disabled artists being positioned within the larger arts ecosystem? I would like for you to think about this as I proceed, and perhaps at the end of all the presentations today, some of you can perhaps share your responses to this question. So historically, disabled artists have encountered significant barriers within the mainstream arts landscape. Traditionally, positioned through lenses that emphasize charity, therapy, or inspiration, rather than professional artistic achievement. Disabled artists have been marginalized or excluded from serious artistic dialogues. So they have been positioned this way. So my question is, what is positioning? So according to Van Langenhoff and Hare, positioning refers to the process by which certain characteristics are attributed to an individual, a group, or an entity. So the good thing about positioning is that the mechanics of positioning implicitly brings about repositioning and inherently captures the continuous shifts in how people perceive themselves and how others perceive them. So who determines positions? So you can self-position. This is when the process of positioning and repositioning is a result of how people evaluate themselves in relation to the difference they perceive of themselves as compared to others. And according to social theorist Patrick Bate, you are also positioned by others. And this is when positioning and repositioning occur when people are perceived by others in comparison to others within or outside one's field. Okay, so this brings me to an important idea, that of a positioning agent. So positioning agents, as described by Bates, are individuals or institutions that influence artists' positions. So the research that I have done revealed that in the context of the Singapore art ecosystem, positioning agents include state museums, galleries, the Arts Council, and amongst others, even conceptual factors such as space. A space can position how people are being perceived. Okay? So, and all these factors significantly impact how artists engage with the society. Here comes my second question for you. Are you a positioning agent or work for a positioning agent for our disabled artists? You don't need to answer now. You can think about this question. So comparative analysis of work by other institutions such as Tate Modern revealed that structured professional opportunities such as commissions, mentorships, residencies, and high-profile exhibitions have a transformative impact in positioning both dis as well as abled artists. Such opportunities substantially increase artists' visibility, creative output, and professional recognition, significantly influencing broader cultural attitudes towards disability, diversity, and inclusion. So positioning theory suggests that institutions, through their practices, discourse, and decisions, play critical roles in assigning particular narratives, roles, and societal expectations to groups or individuals. So I think many of us here work for some form of an institution. So please remember that. So in this context, as the artistic director of key festivals of the National Gallery, I actively take advantage of the gallery's role as a national arts institution to reposition artists with disabilities from marginal and at times therapeutic frameworks into roles recognized as artistically and culturally significant within the national and hopefully international art ecosystem. So allow me to share a couple of examples of how I make use of Light Tonight and Gallery Children's Biennale as platforms for positioning our disabled artists within the mainstream visual arts ecosystem. So the 2025 edition of Light Tonight Singapore, aptly titled Do You See Me? I don't know whether you can see or not. The branding this year was not very well done. Okay, explicitly foregrounded diversity and inclusion. Okay, placing both this plus abled artists at the center of its programming. For example, this intentional curatorial direction gave space for partially sighted multidisciplinary artist educator Claire Teo to showcase her innovative and boundary-pushing artistic practice alongside other artistic contemporaries through her installation called Through the Looking Glass. She'll be sharing more this Friday, so please go and hear her out. Now, this very conscious positioning of artists with diverse practices for Light Tonight Singapore is an attempt at communicating clearly that professional standards and creative excellence apply equally to all artists, regardless of ability. So Claire's involvement in Light Tonight is also an example of how participation in marquee Singapore Art Week events directly supports professional growth and artistic capability development. So as a partially sighted theatre maker and artist, Claire has consistently explored how accessibility and artistic expression intersect and enrich each other. So I trust that Claire's participation in Light Tonight has provided her with a platform to develop and present her hopes and aspirations. And I also hope that the direct engagement with diverse, broad audiences through Light Tonight has enabled her to further develop professionally. So as such, Light Tonight has served its role as a positioning agent in perhaps impacting Claire's professional trajectory. And also, in addition to functioning as a positioning agent to advance in individual career trajectories of artists, the strategic positioning of both this plus able artists as equal, regardless of ability in Light Tonight, and the Gallery Children's Biennale serves a broader institutional and social function. So this conscious positioning strategy actively challenges the cultural assumption that disability arts is inherently separate from or inferior to mainstream contemporary practice. So instead, by positioning disabled artists within a framework of professional equity, as artistic director for both festivals, I hope to contribute to a significant cultural shift, one that redefines excellence to inclusively recognize and celebrate diverse voices and lived experiences. So the Gallery Children's Biennale further reinforces this commitment by creating an additional development platform for both this plus able artists and shaping perceptions about diversity and inclusion from a young age. So for GCB, we are truly excited to feature Fern Wong. Fern is being presented as equal and integral to the exhibition's overall narrative. This explicit positioning sends a powerful message to those who visit the exhibition that diversity and inclusivity are fundamental, not optional in the arts. So I have heard about how the salaries of persons with disabilities are sometimes subsidized by organizations such as religious organizations and other charitable institutions. While I appreciate the additional funding support by the charities, I personally wish organizations would accord higher regard towards and pay our PWDs well enough such that their pays do not require further subsidy. So in terms of equity, for both Light Tonight and Gallery Children's Biennale, all artists are commissioned according to a fee structure that is pegged to their stages in their respective career trajectories. So in the case of Fern, her career is already very established. She has won many international prizes, shown internationally before she even won the inaugural Art Prize. So as such, she is commissioned as an established artist with a corresponding artist fee that is similar to what we pay our cultural medallion artists such as Han Sai-po, Goh Wing Kwan. All right. So I think in the interest of time, I will skip the overseas example. Right, I just wanted to actually just share that, overseas examples, the things that institutions such as Tate Modern do, does also sort of parallel what we do here in Singapore, even though, there's this narrative saying that, hey, how come we always look to the West? But actually, back in Singapore, we are running parallel some of our practice with what is being done overseas. Okay, having shared the above, the journey has not been without its inherent challenges. So firstly, it has to do with challenging audience preconceptions and stereotypes. Even if disabled artists are included, audiences may still approach their work through a lens of inspiration or charity rather than genuinely valuing the art itself. So this can undermine, the festival's intent to present disabled artists as equals. So question here is, how do we shift the conversation to focus on artistic merit? Secondly, the challenge is about bridging the gap between visibility and long-term professional support. Festivals that, like Light Tonight, provide high visibility boosts for disabled artists, but ensuring continued professional progress after the festival can be difficult. So artists may struggle with a lack of commissions and mentorship once the festival concludes. So question is, how do we ensure artists continue to receive support, mentorship, and funding once the festival is over? So thirdly, even with the successful festival participation and recognition, disabled artists whose careers are emerging may struggle with sporadic income streams and short-term project funding. So building a stable, long-term artistic career requires more than once-off commissions. So question which I constantly ask is, after the festival ends, how do we ensure these artists sustain momentum in their careers? So do I have the answers to the questions which I have asked? Answer is yes and no. Yes and no, because I know some of the answers to the challenges lie outside of my locus of control. But good news is they are within your locus of control. So I cannot do it alone at the gallery, and I cannot, at the gallery also cannot do it on its own as well. However, collectively, I think we can address the challenges raised. So I will end with a question for your consideration. What is one action you can take today to enable an arts ecosystem in Singapore that fully recognizes, celebrates, and benefits from diversity and inclusion? I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you very much for sharing with us the perspective from a cultural institution. I'm going to pass the light to Angela, who has been championing work on art and disability.
Thank you. Actually, everything that Dee mentioned, I deeply resonate with it. But before that, because this morning I introduced myself without visual descriptors, I'm going to do this. I'm a short Asian, middle short Asian, short bob lady. I'm 1.67. Today I'm wearing black because I knew I was going to be in theatre, but I wanted to stand out, so I wore white over my black. CD, I'm doing better than her because she's all black. But I think this is a space that I'm very deeply passionate about, mainly because I had many years of working with mainstream artists and I see them struggle. I see them struggle because of all of the invisible barriers that they themselves face. And then all the more I think about the artists that I work with now in my capacity, how much more barriers do they additionally face? So in the work that I do in Artists, I think a lot of people have come up to me to say that, oh, Artists has changed, you've transformed. I said, actually, we have only transformed because it's a product of how society has also evolved. I think I have said this and advocated this many times. The artists that I work with, the individuals and families that we nurture through our community education programs have louder voices, have clearer aspirations, and they want to go further, they want to do more, they want to be seen. Now that we're inviting them into our theatre spaces and to our exhibitions, because of accessible programming, what makes us think that they don't want to be seen on stage and in the halls of the exhibitions? So I think that is what motivates me in a lot of the work we do in Artists. We are a non-profit that has 3 centers. Oh gosh. Just a minute. We have 3 centers embedded within the community, and we run arts programs in all 3 centers across different art forms. So we're multidisciplinary. Majority of our programs are run for community engagement, but increasingly, like I mentioned, there is a greater sense of wanting to professionalize. So in the 3rd center that we built in Bukit Merah, there's also a black box, there's also a recording studio, because we believe that spaces shape aspirations as well. And we give artists access to professional spaces. It also gives them a sense of respect over how they take ownership over their career development. This is a pathway that I think we've been ideating over the last 3 to 4 years. When I say 3 to 4 years was really only because I think we had a significant grant from the ELI Enabling Lives grant to really look at that tier of the emerging artists. In the past, artists' work was we do foundational community-based work. And then suddenly they're expected to be professional artists. I'm sorry, that doesn't happen overnight, right? It's long durational work. As an artist, we take time to professionalize our practice. So all the more for them as well. So the missing gap we found was actually really in that emerging artist space. And how can we create a structured approach to support the individuals that come through the foundation program, but also they may not come through the foundation program, they may come through maybe the higher educations institute, your higher education, your LaSalle, your NAFA. They may also not come through there, they may come through the special education schools, increasingly they have vocational tracks in the arts. But what we want to think about is developmental opportunities in a very porous manner and to be able to support them in a very structured manner to the best of what we can do. I often tell my team, I want to work myself out of the job. I really do. I don't think I should be doing so much. And I think we are only doing all of these because we see the gaps in the capacity development space, and a lot of the work we are doing right now is to prepare artists for excellence. These sharing resonate deeply with me because I fully believe that equity is also about excellence. I'm not going to put an artist on stage if he doesn't deserve the stage, which means that it takes hard work, and an artist should not stand on stage without hard work. And that's constant. There's all of that hard work that has to be put in, and the expectation that comes from us that they can get there. Very often, it's the expectations that we have of them that is what limits them. Like, oh, okay, yeah, you can only do so much because you're like that. But actually, we really want to push them towards artistic excellence. And when there's excellence, there's also equity. It's a vicious cycle. And so the Emerging Artists Program was something we said one of the strategies to really deepen the artistic voice and to help them to shape their practice is to help bridge them to the mainstream, expose them to perhaps what other industry practitioners are already working on, to see whether there could be ways that we could tap on the rich experience of veterans in the space who are prepared in their career right now to give back, to connect, and to see how together with them we can help shape their practice. So that has been highly laborious because it is almost bespoke mentoring. I think Peter's in the room, he's the head of performing arts, has been very critical in helping to match the artists in the performing arts space, whereas myself and Susanna, we match the artists in the visual arts track. We are very intentional. the artists that we match them to are also artists who perhaps would offer a different perspective of what they're currently working on, as a way of either deepening their practice or as a way of reframing how they might develop their own voice. It is always about the practice. And this is an example of EC, which I'm not sure if she was sharing earlier in the other SWT for the other track. So I thought I wanted to take this chance to share about EC. EC is someone who went through LaSalle. She is deaf, she signs, and she's had her own little commercial, she's done commercial photography, but EC's artistic eye is amazing. Like if you see her work, you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that kind of photography eye. And she wanted to, go further in her artistic development. So we paired her with Robert Zhao. On the top left of my slide is Robert Zhao, who represented Singapore at the Venice Biennale last year. I managed to sign him on before he got the Venice project. Okay, that was the only reason we could have someone so esteemed like him willing to work with EC, to go through all of her archives of photographs, to then edit down and curate into her first exhibition, her first, I would say, really serious art exhibition, black and white. He worked with her. And through the exhibition, which was called Turning Points, we called it Turning Points because it was about, a turning point in the artist's practice. And we wanted it to be a universal theme. We didn't want the word disability in it. We just wanted a universal title that artists, whether you're disabled or not, connect with. And I think we all, as artists, all practitioners, often hit a roadblock in our practice. And we're waiting for that turning point. And in this case, for Izzy, being able to connect with Robert was a certain turning point in a different way. She worked on a whole body of black and white photographs that eventually the exhibition was picked up by Uniqlo to then do a full-on photojournal exhibition that was exhibited in their Orchard store. But why am I sharing this story? It's because what is valuable in this whole process was the deep mentorship, or rather, I don't think there was many mentorship sessions, but very deliberate mentoring from Robert and the opportunity of the platform. So I want to go back to this platform because you talk about positioning. When I first joined ArtDis, we had this center. One of our centers has a gallery space in it, and we churn 6 exhibitions in a year in this gallery. And I look at the team, I said, gosh, who on earth comes to this gallery? Nobody. It is our community. It is not an art space. It's a community space. It's on the top of the shopping mall. Even if I book as much publicity around it, it is not an art space. The position it has within a non-art space can sometimes be a political, to take it into an art space is a political intent of how I want to position my artists. And so we stopped doing exhibitions in our little gallery space. We use that now for other types of incubation work, but we now show our exhibitions in art spaces like the Arts House, Objectives. We were very grateful when C-Focused also then give us an opportunity for Seoktin's work to be presented in C-Focus. It's that continuous journey in remembering that in whatever we do, as much great intent that we have to develop an artist's career, the same thing applies. Where are you shown? Who are you showing to? Who are you working with? And it was very difficult at the start because everybody had the same thoughts around what's the quality of the artist that you're showing. And I think that's why we are really serious about the professional development, because we know that what's now going to be in the way is whether artists are ready to be on mainstream stage. And if they're not, how can we help them to be ready? Or how can we help them find alternative ways to be seen, to be visible, to be included? This is a work, I think all of you are familiar with class, so I don't want to go too much into this production, but this was also part of the Emerging Artists program where she told me she wanted to work on this piece. She went to find her own cast and her own creative crew. I said, go for it. Actually, I didn't agree with her theme, but I said just, in the end, she pressed on and she went ahead with it, and I think it was an excellent opportunity for her to see that when you make a stand for what you want and you really push through. She taught me that she's an artist, right? And then that's the kind of space that I now have to take a step back and say, okay, you fully deserve that space. And I fully support you to find that space. I'm going to land on this final slide, really because the work of professional development is not just about the capacity development, but it's the ecosystem approach that we need to take around their development. And we look at collaborations and partnerships as one key enabler in terms of how we take them outside of our 3 centers, outside of the work we do within ArtDis. We look also a lot at the different showcase platforms, which I've shared very briefly about. It is a field of work that requires multi-sectoral partnerships. And the commitment to overcome the pervasive, invisible barriers within the cultural sector. Let's not kid ourselves, there are immense amount of barriers in this cultural space. And the last thing is the time to allow new vocabularies to emerge. I think we are sometimes very, this is Singapore, right? We want things to be fast, fast, fast. We want artistic practice, the field of work to develop fast, but sometimes we forget that time needs to be present. At the first panel, I'm sure they have talked about, the 3 of them in the first panel had talked a lot about the time that they have spent to get to know even the individuals that they're working with, the artists, what were their enablers, what were their motivations, and it's the time also, in a different way, for new vocabularies to emerge. This is a work called Performing Normal. This was incubated in SAM, Singapore Art Museum, for I think more than a year now. And the beautiful part of the work was it constantly changed throughout its whole incubation process. I think we had 3 to 4 iterations of it in different parts of the museum coming to life, being activating from the lived experience of the 3 disabled artists that artist Alicia New also worked with to incubate the work. There is a QR code here that I would like to invite all of you to scan because I think this is full already, but the QR code will lead you to the documentation of the very long, laborious process where we allowed the lived experience of young disabled artists to exist within the institution, to interrogate how people look at their bodies, to think about what does it mean to be normal, and normal artists, normalcy, normal. And that's all. That's my last slide, because I overran.
You are on time, Angela. Thank you. Thank you, all my panelists. Just to open up the conversation, I would like us to return back to the poetry that I've presented you. Just the first line. I wanted to be seen, but who would see me? And I would like to take this moment for us to just soak in this moment. Here today, I think it's a point of celebration. For me personally, it's my first time working with artists. I think this today is a convergence of many possibilities and reason. Firstly, I think, the earlier panel spoke about time. In today, my whole experience of artists is also about a time of translating, a time of understanding, a time of multiple encounters from an able body with also peers that have got different abilities and probably with a different ability that I have to also take time to adjust. So I'd like to just get us to recognize this significant moment that we are sharing from, people with different abilities in this space. And I think what is interesting also from the panel's discussion is this whole notion of positioning. And I think when I took on this assignment to be a moderator, and I'm actually quite a disruptor, so I then hold my panel responsible to this question of reframing. So I was very interested, in terms of in this work in progress that we are having, and I think today is a celebration of a milestone of some sort that we can look back historically. But I think it's also a point of interrogation of our position as we do the work the kind of spaces that we are creating, or are we co-creating these spaces? And to what extent then do we let go of this co-creation so that colleagues with different ability are able to own the space? I think that is the interrogation going forward, right? I mean, now because we are transiting, we are creating this space because we choose to see, right? But then going beyond what we choose to see, then how do we create more spaces to enable colleagues with different ability to then not be challenged by whether they are seen or not, and they are there, and then we would coexist like where we are today. Being able to kind of like just remind ourselves to slow down our time, the way we speak, the way we communicate with each other, the way we do things. And I think this is where I want to kind of like return back to the panel about this whole notion about repositioning, right? And how do you maybe in your practice have constantly kept your toe to reposition? Because without this repositioning, I don't think our colleagues here today will be talking about what they are talking about, because, you know, Nano, as an artist, choose to see that aspect of society, right? And Dee, from a cultural institution, also choose to exercise that position, right? To question how then do we reposition. So I guess while I'm waiting for the questions to come in, so please make use of the Mentimeter. I'm just going to flip this up so that we have 18 minutes. So while we wait for the Menti questions to come in, I actually wanted to ask my panel, in the context of authentic representation, and I think it's important for us to understand that this is a conversation and a work in progress, right? What does authentic representation means in the work that you're doing right now? Anyone? Anyone? Then we can give it a head start.
Authentic representation, right?
Yes, authentic representation.
For
What
this,
does it mean to your organization?
I see. Authentic representation sometimes used in a terminology of cultural reproduction of art. And then I think when we talk about and discuss about authentic representation in the organization like disability arts organization is, I think it's related with the process of how we working together and understanding with the communication, how we get the distance between like me, maybe as a facilitator and also the disabled artist. I think not suddenly we can working together. We should connecting first with communication, with understanding how they works, and sometimes we call it's like educational things, or sometimes we call it guiding. And I think this is a process of how we disabled and non-disabled artists producing art as a part of their activity. I mean, for disabled artists, and in that art that reproduced by that producing by the disabled artist, it's autonomically is a part of his authenticity, his or him or its authenticity of their production. I think so. It's about to recognizing how far we can go as a facilitator or as an organization working with disability artists, and to give the ownership is their own. I think is how we can get to working together and understanding and make a good communication in between that.
So communication and understanding as part of your process of trying to achieve authentic representation. Thank you, Nano. What about Angela and Dee?
I think for me is I have a big challenge now, which is that how many percentage of my own creative team is made up of individuals with disability. And that is a constant challenge that I think about all the time. And I often look around at the artists I work with, and I think, who can I bring on board, to run the project with me, to plan the project with me? And the reality is very few. But that then pushes me to think about, if not all artists necessarily are good performers or good in their practice, are there aspects of their practice that I can embed them a bit more or open up new opportunities for them? So there are some of the artists I work with, or perhaps whether you call them artists or at this point of time they are students, they enjoy talking to people and they enjoy hosting workshops. And I start to think, actually, let's start from there, right? Let's just start from what they're good in, and how can I start to slowly co-opt more and more of them into the work that I do, like what Nano says. It's actually it's from the process, not just about asking them what they want, but how can I embed more of them in our process and in parts of the work we do. When we had the exhibition at Turning Points, we had pre-identified, there was one of our artists, he was not part of the exhibition, but he enjoys gallery sitting, he enjoys talking to people. I said, I'm going to train you to do gallery sitting. Let's start from there. I think it's always just looking at possibilities of how we open up pathways, how we open up different opportunities that they can be better embedded. I don't know whether we will land ourselves in a day when, although it's my dream that the organization is led by someone who's disabled, but at least in a lot of the work we do, we often think about not just about I need to have someone who's disabled, but also the question of who would best be able to, who do I include in this space that is best leveraging their interests and their strengths. Sometimes it's a force fit, and I don't think it should ever be a force fit, because that is the exact opposite of what authentic representation is. The moment we are trying to take a box, that is the first game to lose,
Thanks, Angela. So what I'm hearing is looking out constantly and then reassessing opportunities so that we can align values for individual that comes our way to play the role. Yeah? Dee, any?
I think with regards to that question, I think from the institution, perhaps the perspective I'll share would be from a systems and a structure perspective lens. At the end of the day, the festival can only be as authentically diverse as the diversity of the planning team that brings about the festival. So unfortunately, my team now, I would say it's still, there are no, we don't have any member of the team that is disabled. As artistic director of the two festivals, I am hoping that it will change. And I'm hoping that in years to come, perhaps or for the matter, in the next couple of editions, hopefully, the artistic director of the festival could perhaps be somebody who is differently abled. Yeah. So I think it's only through that kind of a systemic change that we can bring about more authentic representation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dee. I think that is very aspirational. And we hope
WIP.
we will. Yes.
So we need to work ourselves out of a job. Yes.
I think we have a question here. The question is, if I am not a company or institution, how can I play a part in repositioning disability arts?
I want to answer that.
Go.
If you're a practitioner, go and find a disabled artist and work with the disabled artist. Start from there. And then you will find that you evolve your own artistic language and your content and what you create, that it naturally attracts programmers, institutions. Of course, you can always find a host to incubate the work for you. But I'm always looking for artists who want to work with our artists. I think that's the starting point of bridging, the disabled artists to the wider mainstream artistic community.
Thanks, Angela. Nano and Dee?
Okay. I think disability is not about this only disabled problem, but I think it's all about we think about inclusivity in every side of our life. So we can start it with easiest thing is to care about disabled problem, not only about accessibility physically, but how they can make creatively things or representation or self-expression, and what they want to share with people socially, we can accept it in whatever ways. It can be exhibition, but it can be small things like just social things. So we can start it easily to open mind to hit the gaps between disabled and non-disabled, because disabled and non-disabled is always about gap and how to breaking the gaps with the small thing. I think it's not about institution, it's not about company, it's about human to human. I think this is about.
Yeah, I want to echo Nano's point about human to human. So earlier on, before I started my presentation, I did like a brief walkthrough of my journey. So I would like to say that I didn't, of course, start out working for an institution or a company. It took me sort of many years before I could really culminate whatever I went through into the role that I am privileged to have today. Yeah. So, but point is, I think as I remember when I first joined MOE Arts Education, Special Education branch. Before that, I was, of course, I was art trained, and I taught art. And with the special education branch then, there was no focus on arts education. This was 2007. There was no focus because I remember my assistant, then the biggest boss was the assistant director. Assistant director said that for what is most important for our students with disabilities is literacy, is vocational education. Arts is not important. However, I had the opportunity, I think one of those conferences, to meet Ai Liang and Sok Huang, that time from NAC. Ai Liang was then, I think, director of community arts. And we started talking. And eventually SPED schools managed to get some form of a NAC arts education, the NAC AEP arts grant, even though percentage is not as high as the regular schools. But the example that I'm giving here is even at our individual level. I was then just a very newbie young officer, who believe in perhaps disability arts or arts for everyone. Just, had a conversation and things happen. So I think make use of all these networking opportunities. You'll be surprised by what will be the outcomes of such platforms. Yeah.
Thank you. I think this is also a question of, maybe it's just not disability art, right? Maybe this is also a broader question of what can you do for disability and how do you create awareness for disability and provide spaces of encountering using the arts, perhaps. Bring a friend to a show, bring a friend to the next, to do next year's art disc if they are organizing one more next year. I think it's really about creating these encounters, right? To enable us to change that space, at different pathways of education from formal to informal, and I think this is also where the cultural institution and event space are useful. I just wonder if we have another question. We have. Do you think that the emerging artists program at Attendees can become mainstream, part of mainstream education?
That is my aspiration. I kept saying I'm trying to work myself out of a job. Actually, part of other than the emerging artists, the emerging artists program, within that we are already working with artists who have graduated from LaSalle and NAFA. Not all, some, those who have been able to, with their cognitive ability, go through higher education. And they struggled, right? So actually the emerging artists program is that support to transition them into professional practice. I think, can the institutions do this, the LaSalle, the NAFA do this? Can the other arts organizations who are running residencies think about how they can support an artist with disability? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why my own strategy of the way I work in Attendees is I never try and do things on our own. A lot of the emerging artist work that we do, we actually are very intentional with working with different artists, with different arts companies. One of the artists, Jasprit, who's working on one of the piece is with a theatre it's with a theatre company. The work is going to be presented in January next year. It's a festival level that has taken on the mentoring role. I think that it needs to be mainstream, but I think also part of our role is almost a little bit of a scaffolding role, where because there is a lot of complexities and care that goes into supporting an individual with disability to be part of mainstream. So we will often continue to play that role, that bridging role. But do we need to be the end point of the end point of how the program is being delivered? No. And I hope that that is perhaps the future of how this program evolves. The Artist in Training program, which is one level down, for the visual arts program, we've got NAFA to come in to do a top-up certificate. And that's a way for us to support individuals whom we know cannot go into higher education because of their cognitive, it's the IQ level and everything. And that is a way for us to, at different levels, perhaps try and structure different opportunities for mainstreaming and alignment with other capacity development institutions. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but it's a very complex one. We don't want to be, I think the ideal is to be in mainstream, but there has to be a part of it where we probably still need to somehow be part of the equation. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela. I just wonder if we have one last question. I'm just mindful of time. Do you have any answers as to how to authentically represent those with intellectual disabilities in spaces that demand intellectual ability, like festival, planning team, etc.? So I think
That question is for me, is it?
well, you can respond.
Work together. That's the answer.
Nano? Do you have? I mean, in your own experience in the work for Jogja disability art, how have you, maybe in the work, has there been any instances where you have artists with intellectual disability who need support?
From my experience with the organization, about authenticity representation, those is some when we said about a professional artist or non-professional artist with a disability art, is many spectrum on it, especially in intellectual disabilities is different cases. I think because it's about art is about social system for them, not just only about authenticity of the artwork, but how art become a part of his social life. So I think when Angela said about it's professional and non-professional. I think it's disability. Art is not about only professional to become a professional artist, but sometimes it's about social, sometimes it's about therapy, sometimes about, so it's different case, I think.
Thank you, Nano. I think on the note of this question, perhaps what this question is suggesting us to think deeper is how can we actually coexist? I think today's gathering, right, of colleagues, whether we are able-bodied, disabled-bodied, I think this is a demonstration of our capacity to coexist. So I think going forward, it is also a question of how then can we learn to coexist, especially from us with that able body. How can we coexist with colleagues out there, peers out there, that who is a citizen of our land and who wanted to be seen, but who would see them? I think as we go out through the door after this session, as we talk about repositioning in our area of practice, maybe think about, if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, if you're a therapist, if you're an artist, how can we reposition the way we talk about beliefs, expectation, aspiration? If we are in that position to have that capital to create spaces, maybe that's the agency that we can exercise for our peers for now, just to create that platform, to create that equity so that someone else can stand on it to be on par with where we are as able privileged body in our society, who are also, they are equally that rightful citizen of the land of Singapore or, wherever our colleagues are coming from. So on that note, I would like to thank my panel, Angela, Dee, and Nano. And thank you everybody for your kind attention.